Hey guys, it's Friday, so it's time for a Fear Friday video. It's currently getting really warm. It's spring, but here in the South, we typically don't seem to have much spring anymore. We go from winter to summer. So while it's not extremely hot yet, I mean, we're already hitting 70s and 80s here in Tennessee. And so our Fear Friday today is going to be heat. I'm going to turn this into a two-parter. And so next week, we're going to talk about what to do in a race situation in the heat. But today, I'm just going to talk about how to adapt and use it in your training because it can be a little scary. A lot of people tend to avoid it. So they'll do most of their runs really early, really early as a way to just avoid getting out in the sun or the heat and humidity. And that is... that's okay to do for some of your runs, but I'm going to talk about this. It's really important if you know you're going to have a race in the late spring or in the summer or actually even in the early fall that you really try to adapt and acclimate to being in the heat during your training runs. So avoiding it altogether, doing those super early morning runs. While that's good for some of your runs, like your speed workouts or your track workouts, or even some longer tempo runs or things that are pushing the pace a little bit, I get it. You really want to have a good, effective, hard effort run, and so you don't necessarily want to do that in the heat of the day. I understand. So on some of your easier pace runs, it's really important to suck it up and try to get out there and spend some time on your feet when it's really hot. Going at noon isn't always possible for people because you work during the day. Not everybody has a schedule that will allow that. If you do have some time on your lunch break, going out for your easy run is a really good way to, it doesn't even have to be very long. And here's the trick, you really need to watch your heart rate during these things. So if you don't use a heart rate monitor, I suggest getting that for your heat training because your pace needs to be adjusted. You need to watch what your heart rate is doing in the heat. That's pretty important to this. That's going to give you an idea of how you're going to perform in a race setting if it's hotter than you expected. So you're going to have to kind of make some adjustments and changes to your plan if your race ends up being hotter. And this will give you an idea of what your heart rate does in the heat. So if you train this way from time to time, you're going to know better how it's going to affect your running. So I suggest getting a few runs. So on the weekends, if you have a long run on one day and a shakeout run on the other, or, if you can't go during the middle of the day, go as soon as you get home from work. Or, that sometimes when we get really warm, that 4 to 6 p.m. window, it's the hottest part of the day. So if you can get a good run in right when you get home from work when it's hot, again, these slow, easy runs, they're the best. You kind of want to try to throw in one of your longer runs from time to time when it's hot, just so that you can feel, you can sort of feel what that's going to feel like. You're really trying to get your heart and your brain adapted to that because there's all sorts of science about trying to get your blood to the surface of your skin. Your body has got to get to the point where it can cool itself efficiently, and that's the point. So throwing these runs in from time to time will really help you do that more healthily and more effectively. But if you don't do this and you don't shock your system in this way, and you only train early in the morning when it's cooler, then if you are in a race setting, you're going to experience this for the first time, and you're probably going to have a very negative race experience. So I suggest this for people especially for people who have a late spring race, but also those early fall races, which are pretty common. A lot of our big marathons, ultras, triathlons, we've got a lot of, the Chattanooga Ironman is a big race here regionally, and it's in September. And this past year was the hottest It's one of the hottest Ironmans on record, and a lot of people did not expect it to be that warm. And so people had to change their plans and adjust accordingly to heart rate. So that was very important. So I say all these things so that you can know that in your training, that is very important. It's really beneficial for anybody. So even if you don't have a race that fits into that time frame, training your body in a way that sort of shocks your system, it's pretty good. It's pretty good for you to kind of switch it up. Now, again, you don't want to do your hard effort runs in the heat of the day because that is a strain on your heart. You want to keep your heart rate low. But these are just some tips to help you in the training process. Another thing that you can do, and not everyone has access to this, but you can spend some time in a sauna. You want to go for a dry sauna because that's really going to give you the most bang for your buck. Also, hot yoga studios are great. They really do help you acclimate to get your body moving actively in a pretty uncomfortable temperature. So those are some options as well. The sauna is a really good tool, but again, like I said, not everybody can get to it. If you can, start with once a week for about 15 minutes, work your way up to 2 to 3 times a week as you get closer to your race. It's not critical. Really running out in the heat is super beneficial, but if you can't do that, that's an option. Okay, so next week we're going to talk about what to do if you're racing in a hot environment, and we'll talk about that for our next week's Fear Friday. Thanks. Have a good weekend.